evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, Mark.
Hello, Mark.
Very nice. And also Jeff, King Jeff in the house, projectionist and owner of the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. Say hello, Jeff.
Good evening, everybody.
And this has been the greatest journey of my adult life, starting up this podcast and being able to talk to true legends in the drive-in culture and also Hollywood and the industry, spreading that love of what it means to really love film and really be inspired by film and drive-ins, of course, in a way that pivots your entire life. And today we're joined by not one, but two guests, brothers, that is, who are honestly two of the most creative guys that I've ever met, inspirational to no end. And Gene, you guys probably will recognize Gene's name as the guy who asks all the questions whenever we have a Patreon question fish. He's a #1 supporter. But give it up, ladies and gentlemen. We got Bill and Gene Barretta in the house.
Hello.
Yeah.
Nice to be here.
We are so excited to have you guys.
Thanks.
For those of you guys that follow the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, you may have noticed a little event that exploded on our socials when we announced that the Muppets are taking over the Mahoning Drive-In Theater and the boys are presenting this event. So why don't we start with something very, very basic, very, very simple. You guys are the Muppet guys. You run the Barretta Brothers podcast, which is a Muppet-themed podcast. How did you guys get involved with the Muppet world, and what is your place in the Muppet world?
You know what, Virgil? Why don't you mind your own business?
Yeah. Who asked you?
I asked the questions around here.
Yeah, you and who else wants to know?
Me.
Step over this line. Step over.
Mark wants to know?
Yeah.
I want to know if Jeff wants to know.
I want to know.
That's all that matters.
Oh,
That's a big question.
A loaded one. I mean, I was going to literally lay down your credentials and, read some of the stuff that y'all do, but I figured it would be a lot cooler to give them a rev up and see how the Muppets inspired you to where you are,
Yeah, no, I was just actually talking about how we're kind of connected because being younger, I just want to say that I'm younger than Gene. My perspective on it and Gene's are probably very different until they merge, when I start to be involved in Gene's creations, right? Because he was really, if it wasn't for Gene, there's no way I would be involved with the Muppets because he just always was super creative. And he was always the one who came up with whatever we were going to do with our lives, right? So I always do it as like the bumbling idiot brother, who's just like he would say, "Okay, Billy, all right." He'd have an 8mm camera, and I'd be on the roof. "All right, Billy, jump off the roof." Okay, and then I would jump off the roof. Or okay, we're going to set you on fire, and then you roll around, and you'll.
And action.
It'll go out. And I go, okay.
Yeah, you hope it'll go out.
Yeah. Well,
it's good to have a naive younger brother, I'll tell you.
Yeah, but the thing is that's what made me want to entertain, is that he put me in front of it. And he was in it too, of course, but he was directing and coming up with what we were going to do. So how I got to know the Muppets was through Gene's creative process. So Gene, if you want to tell about how, you got interested in all that stuff.
Well, I just did a book on Steven Spielberg's childhood, and the reason it was so appealing to me was because I was doing the same things you see in The Fabelmans. I was constantly making films in my teens. Our parents were breaking up too, which was happening in his life and all, which is what I connected with the book. So that's what I was doing in my teens, making movies every waking moment.
Animation, clay animation. He would watch Monty Python and he'd go, "Oh, I'll go do that. And then he would go and he would figure out how to animate clay, you know? And
Well, yeah, with the cutout paper animation like Terry Gilliam did, I ripped it off all the time, but because it was so amazing.
There was no medium that wasn't off limits. You were trying everything. The
he would
youth
do anything.
just drives you in that way, you know?
Yeah.
And then, so when I was in my early teens, my cousin Gary and I were switching the channels one day, and it was probably like 1970 or something, and we discovered Sesame Street, and there was Bert and Ernie on the screen, and we became instantly,
Captivated. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we started going to the foam and fabric store and trying to make our own version of Muppets.
But which is weird because, like, not far from our house, there was a foam and fabric store, and they had googly eyes. Like, you could buy a packet of googly
Some
eyes.
destined magic in the air there, I think.
Yeah, it was so crazy that when you think about it now, like, what? Why is there a foam and fabric store around the corner from where we lived?
For you guys to discover.
Yeah.
So the three of us, Billy would then join us. We would do puppet shows at my Aunt Kathy's school where she taught the deaf. And so we would, you're wondering, well, how can you do that? Well, they can, feel the vibrations, and we would just play music and have the puppets dance around and lip sync and all that. So we would,
they would point the speakers towards the ground, right? So they would lay them flat on so they could feel the music.
Wow.
So one day in junior high, I had a substitute teacher who knew some people at Sesame Street. And so I said, oh, great. And so I don't remember the details, but somehow I was able to get the address of the place. And I thought, I'm going to write Jim Henson a letter and ask him how to really make Muppets. And he wasn't,
just why not reach out to the guy?
Yeah, he's not doing anything.
But remember, he wasn't really that popular yet. This was pre-Muppet Show and everything. Anyway, I did that, and I got a letter back from Jim Henson with instructions on how to make Muppets. Which is an amazing
bender.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure that was an inspirational moment to, And what did the letter say? Was it literally a?
Hang on.
Here, he's got it.
Oh my gosh.
Well, but what Gene did was, even at that age, he was creating his own characters. Like if we would go to the seashore, if we would go to the beach, we would go to the beach, and Gene would be in the sunroom drawing.
I never left the place.
And I would come watch, and I used to love to just go and watch him draw and create. And he always had tons of new characters. And then my cousin Gary, who's also an artist, he and Gene would draw together, and they would make their own comic books or mini flip books together, creating their own characters. So when he wrote to Jim, it wasn't just a letter. He created like this letterhead that had all of his characters in the left-hand corner. And also Bert and Ernie, I think, were in there maybe. But, you can imagine somebody like Jim Henson getting something from like this 11-year-old kid, and just going, wow.
14. I was 14.
Oh, 14. Okay.
Or 13, actually. So it just says, you guys can see here, he sent some pictures too. And there's his letterhead. So this is February 13th, 74. And it just says, Dear Eugene, it's always nice to hear from a fellow puppeteer. I'm sure your puppetry is as original as your paper designing. I'm sending you information on the Puppeteers of America, also some info on puppet making. Bert, Ernie, and Kermit the Frog wish to send you their regards and thank you for thinking of them in your artwork. Best of luck with your puppet shows. So
how's that not going to launch that inspiration?
Yeah, and then he sent instructions, so it was a pamphlet that's had how to make a Muppet.
Unbelievable.
That's fantastic.
I mean, it's clear that
what happened next was I built Muppets and started a show, and then Jim ripped me off.
Yeah, I stole all these characters.
Of course.
I had Kermit first.
All of a sudden, I started seeing all my characters that were drawn up in the corner showing up.
Yeah. Like, hey, Gene, let's do a guy that talks like this. And he was like, oh, yeah, maybe
that's a good
dog.
idea.
Yeah.
So to jump forward a little bit, in 1980 or 81, we lived near where Sesame Place is. This the children's play park,
Sure.
And it was only like in its second or third season.
First.
Wow.
Well, I think we missed the first, didn't we?
80. It was it was the first year. Sorry, 81 was the first year we started working there.
So Billy and I went to work there just as well, I forget what they called us, but you let kids
what
on the
were we?
rides, sweep up cigarette butts and all that.
Ticket takers, right? Yeah.
No, not guest relations, whatever. Yeah, we basically would rotate around the park and you'd clean the bathrooms and then you help kids on rides, or not the food, but you were kind of the guest.
So guess who comes to work there? Brian Henson, Jim's son. So
something's in the stars, man. I'm feeling it.
So then we became good friends over that summer, and we stayed friends, even though Brian then went off to England a lot to work. And when we'd come back, we'd try to get together. And then, Billy, you can take it from here, because then...
Yeah, meeting Brian, he was 17. We're about the same age. He's a little bit older than me, but we just we kept in touch. He went off to college, and
was he cleaning bathrooms at Sesame Place?
For sure. Yeah.
Hell yes, I love that. It's like you got the golden spoon, but you got to learn, son.
Oh no, and well, that's the thing. So Brian wasn't really raised that way. His father wanted him to get a job, and he lived by himself in Princeton, actually, because they had a friend who had a place where he could stay. So he would travel from the place he could stay in Princeton, New Jersey, and drive to work every day and go back and forth. And his paycheck is what he made, right? Yeah. He wasn't like, his dad wasn't giving him like tons of money and stuff like we used to.
Inheritance, yeah.
Yeah, because I had moved out too from home, and I was living somewhere on my with a girlfriend of mine at the time, and our paychecks were what we lived on, and we used to the other employees, we'd all kind of go to the back room, and there was lockers and stuff, where you would keep all your crap. And
oh yeah, yeah.
And we used to see like some of the people just like throw their check in there. They were like, yeah, lock it up. And he and I were like, we got our $92.37.
Let's run to the bank as fast as we can.
Yeah, we got to cash it and pay our bills,
Yes.
So he wasn't like just like, this guy who just had money or anything. He was actually raised to just be like a real person, and not the silver spoon thing. And so we all just hit it off. We had a bunch of friends there at Sesame, and we all got along really well. And there's a great story. The first time I ever met Jim Henson, which was, I was working in the park, and it was, I think, the second year, and they had just introduced these new automatronic characters in the park. They were trying them out to see if they were any good or if they worked well, how people reacted to them. And one was Oscar the Grouch, and he would come out of his can and he'd do a whole routine and talk for a while, and then he would go away after his little presentation. And so we had to stand near these things and, make sure people didn't touch them and stuff. And the one that the Oscar was placed in what they call the food factory, which was where, you would go and eat. And they had a bunch of big windows along this one wall, and the windows faced the front of the park. Yeah. And you could see people coming in. And so I was standing there and I'm watching, how people enjoying it. And I look out the window and I see Jim Henson coming through the front gate. I'm like,
did time stop?
I was like, what?
Like, wait, he's here?
Yeah, is that really coming that way? He's coming that way? And he came through, he was all by himself, and he came through the front gate, and I just left my post and ran out. And I went up to him, I was like, Mr. Henson, welcome to Sesame Place. And he was like, oh, thanks. Hey, do you know where the Oscar is? I was like, do I? So
follow me.
I remember you tried to do Jim Henson before.
Oh, so I get it from like Dave and the other guys who do them all the time. So he goes, oh yeah, do you know where Oscar? So I said, oh yeah. So I brought him over to the thing, and I just stood there and watched him watch, people enjoying it. And then he was like, thanks. And then he left, But, I was like, and that was before I think Brian came to work there.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so then meeting Brian, and then years went by, and
before you get to LA, it was my favorite time with Jim Henson was we were driving up to New York to see Brian because he was back from wherever. And it wasn't until we parked the car that we said, so we're going to the Sherry Netherlands Hotel. Could that be Jim's place? And we went up, and it was Jim's place, and he was there, and he had like 5 or 6 people there, and we spent an evening hanging out for like an hour, whatever it was, with Jim. So that was my favorite.
Just some of his son's buddies hanging out.
Some of his buddies. Yeah.
Yeah. And us. Yeah, right. It was like friends. And then sadly enough, his memorial, we
were there.
We attended that. And that's kind of when Brian and I got together more. And
I gave Daryl. I met Daryl Hannah.
And Gene met
Daryl Hannah. They gave away these foam butterflies on rods for like thousands of people that were there. The St. John Cathedral in New York. And afterwards, people gathered around and for a private thing. And Daryl Hannah was over talking to a friend. And I said, how am I going to get to talk to her? And she didn't have a butterfly. So I used that as my icebreaker.
Well done.
Yeah.
Daryl, I see you don't have a butterfly.
Oh, can I? Yeah.
My savior.
Yeah. And then she wouldn't leave me alone. We had to spend weeks together.
Yeah.
So the memorial brought, I imagine, the whole family together.
Yeah. And well, we had been keeping in touch a little bit over the years. I was living in New York and Gene was in Philadelphia, and then I moved to California. And that fall, I guess, Brian said, I'm coming to California because we're working on a new show that my dad had created. And it was a big, crazy thing too, because, this 28-year-old kid is now running the Jim Henson Company, right? Yeah. His father's gone, and they weren't sure how it was going to continue or what they were going to do. But they, I guess, had made this deal with Disney for the show Dinosaurs back in the 90s, if you guys ever saw that thing or not. But
never saw it. I lived it, baby.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, are you kidding me? Oh, literally, it was my childhood. They say, must-see TV was Full House and all that jazz.
Right.
Me, it was...
I didn't know that.
I'm a little bit younger, so I didn't get that Muppet Show run, and like it really was the thing that was pushing puppetry at that time, especially for a youth. I mean, obviously Sesame Street's the mainstay, but that felt way edgier than a Sesame Street. It just had like those inside jokes that mom and dad could watch with us, and it was such a familial setting and memories for me because everybody loved it.
Yeah. It was just a commentary from the dinosaurs' perspective of our ridiculous world that we live in, and how they would handle it. And I think people could relate and laugh at it. And the kids were like, dinosaurs, they didn't know what we were saying.
Not the mama took off and forget it.
So he came to LA and he said, I'm doing this show. And I said, well, I'll come and sweep the floors. I was an actor and I studied acting in New York. And so I was trying to get work, and I was working as a waiter and doing construction out there in LA here. And he came and I said, I'll do, I don't care. I'll pull cables. What? He said, well, we're doing this thing and there's these suits. They had just done Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so they were kind of in this new technology of suit performers wearing these remote heads, these animatronic heads with suit performers inside. And so that was what they were going to do with dinosaurs. And so he said, well, I know I've seen you do Ralph Cramden, Jackie Gleason from The Honeymooners. I know you farted around and you've done that before, and this character's kind of like him. I don't know how you feel about being inside of a suit, but if you want to come audition, you're more than welcome to audition. And I felt like I was with Gene as a kid. I was like, okay,
what roof do I jump off of?
Whatever you want. Yeah. I was trained already to just say, yep, I'm in, Yeah. And so I went and I auditioned, and fortunately I ended up getting the role. And I know Brian.
Which role?
What's that?
Tell them which role you got.
Oh, I play the dad. I'm inside of the dad, Earl Sinclair. And for a long time, I was always like, oh man, Brian got me this part. And I just always felt like maybe I got it because I know. And I'm sure that helped a lot, right? Of course it did. But I spoke to the co-creator of the show, and he basically said, that the mannerisms, and because they would turn the sound off, we auditioned, we would do the dialogue, but it was all about, I had to interpret the behavior, you know?
Yeah.
And so fortunately they felt like I had this behavior or whatever it was, and that worked, and blah, blah, blah. So I ended up working with all of these amazing Muppet performers. Dave Goelz
You're
was the guy.
essentially the lead.
I ended up
You're
getting
number
out,
one. That's
right?
just crazy.
And I'm inside of this, 110-pound suit or something, and Dave Goelz operated the head. He was doing the facial manipulations, so we worked together. I love him; he was amazing.
Yeah.
And Steve Whitmire worked on the show, and Kevin Clash and Frank Oz would come, and it was a real Muppet feeling, but it was also Disney. It was their first thing together, Muppet Disney. And boy, to visit that set, right, Gene? It was crazy.
I was living and working.
Huge.
Yeah, I lived out there at the time, just mainly doing a lot of PA work and some art department stuff. But when I would do PA work, I would find ways to extend the time I was out on my runs, and I would just hang out on the show and watch.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
And all of the, it was amazing. It's really probably, I have to say, the favorite thing I've ever worked on still. Because it was such a challenge. It was a huge endeavor.
Yeah.
And the performers, all of the puppeteers, the new friends that I made, that we still, after 30 years, still play poker. We have our group that still gets together, these amazing puppeteers and soup performers. And I lived with one of the guy who played my son that was a soup performer. And these are like really like family,
Yeah.
And not just the performing people, but the writers and the people in the crew and the Muppet Workshop people that created these things and took care of us, kept us alive, It was hard. And so I think I love it so much because we all survived it. It really feels kind of silly and Muppety, but we all kind of got through it together.
Yeah, you've been through war, and in a way.
There were actually super performers would occasionally pass out or throw up in their suits and all that, because it was like a sauna bath in there, and they were so heavy.
Oh,
the guy who played Fran with the long neck, he had to quit because he had neck problems and things.
One of my big influences as a kid was those early Turtle movies. And I was so obsessed with it that I'd watch the behind the scenes, how they did it all.
Yeah.
And it was insane to see those guys pull off those masks, dripping sweat. I remember one shot, the guy turned his boot over and it was just like, the sweat poured out of it.
Yeah. The guy who played Michelangelo was Charlene on Dinosaurs.
Wow.
And the guy that played Donatello was Robbie on Dinosaurs.
Who lived with
the guy that was Splinter, Kevin Clash, was Elmo, and then the baby, But yeah, it was a great.
The Henson, really does have that crossover, and they're known for keeping it, in the family and having those talents progress within the company, which is really amazing to see, and it's clearly the case with you guys.
What I can add from an objective point of view is that,
Wait, hold on 1 second, Gene. Sorry, excuse me 1 second. Jeff, how we doing?
Very good. Very good. Sounds great.
All right. I just want to make sure you're happy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I'm trying to picture what Jeff's up to, not showing his face. In a bath or something. Margarita in the bathtub.
If I'm not happy, I'll let you know. You guys are doing great. Virgil is a very good interviewer.
Yes, he is.
Thank you.
Mark's so quiet tonight.
I do all the lead-in prep work, and then I sit back and I make the occasional witty jab comment.
Color commentary.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
I got it.
When I actually need to have the knowledge, it's like who was in this, who was in that. Mark's like, bing.
Yeah.
Leo Gorcey and Hunts Hall.
We did kind of skip, and I don't know because you kind of had this all-encompassing a question, I think, but we didn't talk about when we were kids and drive-ins.
Well, I'm definitely going to get to it.
Okay, very good. Sorry, didn't mean
before I get.
Look at me. I'm like I got to run the show or something.
I mean, I think this is a nice pinnacle setting you guys up. Who you are and your place in the Muppet family. It's really an incredible journey thus far.
Gotcha. So then dinosaurs, just quickly, then I started when dinosaurs ended. Actually, during dinosaurs, when I wasn't inside of Earl, I would occasionally assist other puppeteers, because there were some of the characters were hand puppets, and so I would either try and do a background character and pretend I knew what I was kind of doing, or just watch everybody and try to learn. And then I would go home and I would try and practice at home with a monitor, and a camera, and try and work to the monitor.
Yeah.
And then when dinosaurs ended, because I think of the relationships, that's really what Henson's all about, is these relationships underneath, the puppets. Yeah. And they invited me to come and play, and I would go play, and we would just have fun. And so characters came out of those situations, and then I was asked to come and do something else, and now it's been like 30 years, and I'm doing things all the
family
time.
Archivist, so I keep a list of everything. And you've worked on over 400 projects.
Is that true?
And he doesn't remember any one of them. He'll do. It's really true. He'll do a job.
He's still in that mind state. Put me in, Coach. Put me in.
Yeah.
Put me in, Gene.
Videos and stuff. But I was going to mention something. Having been on a lot of the sets over the years, there's something special about a Henson set, and I've also been on sets that aren't Henson, so I know the difference. But I think when people got into the Muppets and Henson projects, they were driven by Jim's spirit and everything they loved about him, and they carry that. They take responsibility for carrying that onto the set and keeping it full of love and fun. And it's probably the kindest set you'll ever be on in Hollywood or off, wherever people shoot. It really is true.
Well, and it's interesting, like Gene's saying, the other people who knew him really well carry on the approach to the work, and how you treat each other, and everything is valid, right? Even now, if I'm directing something or producing something, the first thing I say to our crew is, everybody's opinions are valid. You have an idea. If you're watching this and you think we're not doing something right, or something is funny that you thought of, please come and tell us, let me know. And we just literally, this latest series that we did, and it hadn't happened in kind of a while, but a guy who was part of the COVID team for the set came up to me and he said, "Bill, excuse me, but what if he said da, da, da?" And I was like, yeah, that's good. And I went over and we threw it in, and it's in the show.
Wow.
Right? So it's that feeling that people feel like they're a part of it.
It's not only the bar that he set with the work, it's also the work ethic and spirit that he carries and carries through his company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, it's clear Bill was very inspired by you, Gene, and your insane creativity, which honestly, that has not ended. Like, you really are that guy that always is working on something, that is always coming up with an idea.
I break my back to earn a living.
Well, what is the bug for you? What inspired you to start working on puppetry and working on art,
books.
Art.
I don't know where it started. I mean, my mother was a huge encouragement to both of us, to follow those artistic.
Our dad,
themes.
Not so much.
but he wasn't the kind that was like, you guys are.
No.
Like, he just didn't understand that world,
Well, and I think he was a frustrated performer too, because he loved to sing, and he was like a South Philly guy who loved to sing, and he would have loved to have hung on a corner with his pals and
crooning it up.
Have fun. Yeah. But he didn't think that was something that you made a living at.
Sure.
Right. Yeah, which you generally don't. but my mom wanted to be an actress as well too, and she modeled for a while while she was raising us, and beautiful.
So the arts were just in the house.
Yeah, and when we had a big Italian family, lots of cousins and things, so performing was just a natural part of everybody. And when we would have family gatherings, there was always a show.
I so relate. Yep.
Yeah, we would just do shows and lip sync records or any number of things, but it was just hell-raising.
Yeah, we used to do penny talent shows where we'd charge, aunts and uncles a penny.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we would like our aunts and uncles. They're all crazy and fun. We all of a sudden we'd get a call at 10 o'clock at night and they'd say, "We're going to Josie's house." Okay, everybody would get in the car and we'd go eat, and whatever, didn't matter what time it was. But every Sunday we all got together. It was at least 20 some people that got together.
Wow.
Or more. And the kids would do a show. There were 9 cousins at the time when we were younger. And we would do these shows. And speaking of puppets, Gene had made this puppet and we were doing a puppet show. And our great uncle, we just called him Uncle, our grandmother's brother, while we're doing the puppet show, we couldn't see. We didn't have monitors, right? There was no camera. It was just we're holding them up and doing our show. And he came up and he fed it. He put ice cream in its mouth. And Gene started crying. He was like, "You ruined it."
Why is my hand getting cold and wet?
Yeah.
Uncle.
Yeah, Uncle was just, they all laughed. He was like, "What have you done?"
Yeah, I was the only one not laughing. You fix the mouth.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned it, about the divorce. Do you think the artistic constant output was a means to kind of cope with that? I mean, I don't know what the situation was, but
I think the art stuff started way before that.
Yeah.
So it was already happening. I don't know, if I thought about it long enough, I'm sure that I found
if you laid down on that couch back there, we could.
Yeah. I think if sorry, Gene.
No, I was just saying, I'm sure I found comfort and distraction with all the art, because
Right.
definitely it was a tough. Well, yeah. All right, we'll leave it at that because it's a whole other show to talk about.
Right. Well, that's what I feel. I say it all the time. The reason I got on a stage was very much to get out of my skin and become another character, quote unquote.
Right.
So I very much relate in that way of escaping through art. And in a weird way, that's what movies are for me now. It's therapeutic and it's an escape. And now work in a weird way is that same thing, being at the drive-in. So
I think because when we were so young, we were doing it and having fun. I think it was something we both felt like we needed to always do, just because it was just the best feeling, right? We just loved doing it. We did it all the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we took a break for several months and then we were always doing jokes.
It's just who you are. Yeah.
It kind of, yeah. And then I think if our parents hadn't been divorced, I don't know if I would have pursued acting like I have, just because I think there would have been an expectation. I may have wanted to please my father more and do things like I tried working at a car dealership and my father was in the car business, like, I don't know, who knows what would have happened, but there's a chance that I could have just gone with, you know what, I'm supposed to stay in Pennslivania and do, I'm not going to follow this thing, this urge that I have, and being living with our mother and not our dad, I think I grew up a little quicker and I left home sooner than I may have, to pursue things as well, to see what was going to happen.
Sure.
So I think it all happens for a reason. Everything
destiny, just like that, the felt shop being next door from you guys. There's something in the sauce,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like the opposite in a way, because I don't think I know how to do anything else. So it's always just been that. And it's been like sink or swim. And the career I have now, which is writing and illustrating children's books, I didn't start this career. I'm 62, and I didn't start this career until I was like 39 or 40.
Did I mention he's older than me?
Good time to drop that in.
All right, just want to make sure.
He's 18. He's 18. Yeah. But I went to NYU Film School, and I worked in the film and TV business for a while. But I realized that the lifestyle wasn't the right one for me, because I'm a real homebody. And I just know from watching Billy all the time, you spend either away from home or just, even working in town, but not home. So anyway, I found that making these books became like making my own mini movies. And so I could be at home working for myself on my own time and having more control generally than you would if you're in the film business, which is much more collaborative than what I do. So I found my ideal career at that later age, because I never even thought it could be a career until I started meeting other illustrators who lived near me. But so it took me a while to realize what I was really cut out to do that fit both my creative skills, I guess, and my lifestyle preference.
Yeah, absolutely.
I knew, I just didn't tell him.
You wasted so many years of my life.
I knew what he was meant to do.
Well,
watching him in the sunroom, I knew it then.
Well, being that it's the drive-in podcast, and you guys have the brotherly love, did you guys have that experience? Were you lucky enough to have a drive-in close to you as a kid?
Down the street.
Oh, I love it. Do you remember what the name of it was?
Marsfield Drive-In.
Oh, love.
We would sneak in under the fence in the back sometimes and sit by this is when they had speakers on the posts.
Yeah.
Sit and listen. This was so funny. I had the nerve to do this once. Our friend Ben Chatray, we decided for some reason we were going to try to sneak in by just putting him in the trunk, right? So we come through, and by the way, I'm not endorsing this.
All you drive-in fans.
We need to support our Mahoning. So we pulled in. He's in the trunk, and I decide I'm going to park in like the third row of the drive-in, and it's still bright out. And I just walk over. I let him out of the trunk like we're out in the middle of a vacant field, and he gets in the passenger seat. And pretty soon there's a knock at the window, and the guy's like, "Did you just get out of the trunk?" We're just no way.
It wasn't us.
You didn't just get out of the trunk. And we wouldn't admit to it, and he just kind of let us go. But,
amazing.
Yeah.
The back of the theater had a large wood slat fence, and there were 3 slats that somebody loosened, and you could push them forward
like something out of a movie. Yeah,
just like a movie. They would do that, and you would crawl under. Yep. And stay in the dark, stay in the shadows.
Great escape.
And then at some point, somebody put a couch behind the fence, not inside. Remember that? It wasn't inside, obviously, but you could raise the things up and sit on the couch.
Awesome.
And watch it from back there,
Well played. I'm telling you, it was all about that sneaky factor back in the day. My parents loved to cover us with blankets. That was their move.
Oh,
especially cousin nights when we all, we're all together. It was like, there's like 10 of you guys,
Yeah. No, the drive-in was an amazing thing.
The Route 1 drive-in, and I'm going to blank on the others.
Ewing?
This was like mid 60s, early 70s. So this was like transitioning over into like the softcore porn era of drive-ins and things like that too.
Yeah.
So
did you guys get to enjoy that, or what? Are you beating around the bush right now, or?
I don't remember going to see a soft porn drive-in.
You don't?
No.
Everybody we talk to has the childhood memory, and then they also made it a point to try to revisit that once they were in their driving years and dating years,
Right.
That's the there's 2 allures to the drive-in, and the Passion Pits is one of them for sure.
Do you remember any films specifically that you saw at any age? I mean, excluding the age of now when you come to the.
Well, I was just going to tell you that we need to take a pause in this podcast so I can pay tribute to you guys, because you have literally made my dreams come true. And I would, for years and years, decades, have these dreams about being back at the drive-in, and it was a combination of like a flea market below the screen and like an older film playing up on the screen, and I'm just walking around watching the film while the market's happening too. It was like a combination experience.
Right.
And I would have these dreams over and over and over, and I would always think, if I was wealthy, I would build one for myself, even if nobody came, whatever it is. And you guys gave me that dream. You put me back in the drive-in where I'm seeing movies that I always loved. I'm walking around in flea markets occasionally.
Yeah.
And you showed, was it last summer? You showed the 1965 Batman. That was my earliest memory of going to the drive-in, was seeing the 1965 Batman. And you brought that back to me. So I'm just deeply indebted to you guys for the work you're doing there and what you've created.
It means so much. I mean, and we've become so close, Gene, with each other and our kids and everything else. But it's it's a dream come true. The idea that it's become this culturally significant and this loved amongst the drive-in community and culture revival of it all, and the 35 millimeter preservation.
Yeah,
the gift that keeps giving. I see you back there, Ben.
And I'm able to
can't wait to have you pick up the lot.
I'm able to get my son school credit for interning at or volunteering at your place.
I'm telling you, that's close.
Yeah.
If the world knew that you could get credit to come and pick up at the Mahoning, we'd be flooded.
Okay, world, you can get credit for coming to the Mahoning.
But it is such a lovely community there. Ben and I, twice now, we've come to the show. We've come there, and we haven't even stayed for the movie because it was just not something we were in the mood for that night. But we wanted to do the pre-film activities. Yep. And just see the people that we know, and it's such a peaceful and exciting place at the same time.
That your voice went up really high on activities, like you really love it.
Those activities, like we know what he's talking
activities. About. You really like those
activities.
Yeah,
it's a rarity that you can go anywhere and get your money's worth before even getting to the meat of the entertainment.
Yeah,
it sounds amazing.
It's something that, it's as much preservation and work goes into the preservation. There's something inherently easy to love about a drive-in and the experience and what we're trying to offer and preserve with the Mahoning that, it blows our mind that Hollywood has now embraced us and beyond. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Magic carpet, which I'm sure you can relate to in this career set that you're in now. You try something out, it sticks, you get inspired, and then you run, like you said. How quick was it that you were working on every piece of puppetry and starting to sharpen your skill set, and it didn't even feel like work because you're so inspired by it and the people around.
Billy, they really have made a connection with Hollywood because people like Quentin Tarantino lend them prints to show from his personal collection. Things like
he's
that
amazing.
Yeah.
He's a lovely guy.
What really connected the dots with the Muppets event and bringing you guys in, we realized it wasn't even about the movies per se. We could tap into a specific fandom, and sometimes fandom that doesn't get the shine, and people will come miles or states, countries away to get into it. Mark headed a Monkeys event last year. It was such an eye-opener to see the love of such a specific fan base come together. And that's really when it clicked with Gene and started talking about, if we did a fan event for the Muppets and didn't just show the movies, but had it be a fan meetup, it's so ripe. And, it's as much love as there is for the Muppets. It's not like you can go to Muppet Con in your neighborhood and wear that love.
Yeah, I had this idea once because I was into the idea of like drive-in thing, but it would never work. But I imagined a glass building restaurant that you could go and sit and watch the movie outside while you're having dinner,
I like the way you think.
Because not everybody, it was a period, it was starting to feel like, people don't always watch things so much anymore. They just like to listen to it, right? Mm-hmm. So I just thought, how fun. Like, you'd have this view of a movie, of a screen, but you're having dinner and you're talking with your friends. You're like, oh, hey, The Shining,
I love those cool, like, outside the box. There's a drive-in in Texas that, they're pretty much just little pods that you can rent and sleep in overnight, but they also play movies and it's fun. Right. There's the hotel drive-in. They had a hotel built, and you open up your curtain and bang, there's
they do. Well, there
screen
you go.
right there.
Okay. Well,
You know, real quick story reminded me of, I was in a Mexican restaurant once having dinner with friends, and they felt obligated to have Telemundo on their TV. And even though the sound was turned down, they still had a. So I spent dinner watching The Exorcist.
nice.
Yeah, really appetizing.
Yeah, a little pea soup on the side for you.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what. Honestly, I don't remember what drive-in movie I saw.
It's all about the memories more than the movies. That's what we find is it's rare somebody remembers the specifics, but they can tell that the 3-panel could lift in the back and, tell you stories.
I can remember, sitting on the hood of the car, with our blankets. I remember doing that. And I remember the heater in the winter. They'd have that hot metal thing. And my father was always like, God damn it, this thing, It was always hot. I remember.
I never had the true drive-in experience with a girl in the car, as a guest.
Oh, right.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
Not with the Mahoning.
That's right.
Did
you guys find that those experiences and hopefully those experiences together fueled the creativity and maybe even took it to a higher level? I mean, for me, I was inspired by television and by cable. Like that was what I was in front of. But when my parents took me to the drive-in and I got exposed to movies larger than life, it's what bit me with the bug of performing and being like, oh, there's people who are behind this.
Yeah.
It just never clicked as a kid with television, where movies somehow just seemed like that thing that clicked it for me.
I think so. I mean, doing the Muppets, there's obviously anonymity, right? People don't really see me, but before I was into all that, I wanted to be an actor. And, you go to the movie theater and you see these people are 20 feet tall, and you're just all consuming. Like I wanted to be Robert Redford in The Sting, and I went and I saw it 11 times down in Ocean City, New Jersey. It's such a powerful thing to see it up there, Yeah. But at the same time, I think we were also inspired by television and what was on then, those TV shows. Oh yeah, that's right. So I wanted to be him so much that I noticed while he's eating, there's a diner scene. While he's eating, he has his hands like he's holding guns, like 2 pistols.
Pistol hands, yeah.
Except if you watch, he has a fork in his one hand that he's eating with, but the other hand is like this. And I started to do that all the time. And my mother was like, "What's wrong with your hands?" Nothing. And I still do it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Talk about the power of film, right?
That's right. It'll change you.
Benjamin, do you feel like at your age now, my son is 19 and we've been going for 4 years now.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've got some really instilled memories that you're going to hold on to for a long time?
Yes.
And anything that stands out?
Oh God, you put me on the spot. I guess being able to meet everybody. I think Virgil's on my top 10 list of nicest people.
Oh, look at that.
I'm honored.
And
it's a community.
Yeah. He just loves to be, like I said, just be there even before the films.
Yeah.
Because it's just such a nice hangout for a few hours. Yeah.
It's such a difference from, clearly it's different from the traditional movie-going experience, but just a business in general, where you're so embraced by the people and they really will give you the time of day and truly care about your patronage. And it's a cross. I mean, the amount of people that have become true family members, and Gene, you're a perfect example. It's, you were somebody who just came to the drive-in to enjoy it and get an escape, and the connections that we make, it inspires. I mean, your brother as well, the stories that you guys have, it inspires and fuels the fire for what we're doing, which is pretty much trying to follow a dream and continue to inspire the next generation by presenting some magic,
I have a question for you guys.
Oh my gosh, yeah, please.
Just because I'm such a foodie.
A what?
A foodie.
Oh,
I love food. Yes. I remember as a kid, one of my favorite things was to go to the snack stand, right? And you would get whatever they had. But do people have expectations of having a more variety of food, or is it still that old school feeling where it's still, I don't know, popcorn and good and plenty, and is it like that, or do you guys do other stuff? Do you ever do like a barbecue thing, or
we call it traditional drive-in fare, so it's what you would expect even from when you were going to the drive-in in the 60s and 70s.
So it feels like it's it's the tradition of the
it's what people expect. Now we also do specialty items. We do themed items. So, zombie weekend, zombie fest weekend, you can get the Zomburger, you can get, things like that. So it's constant creativity in every department, but I'm telling you, that culinary treat and culinary aspect to the drive-in is not something that's lost on me, clearly, but
me neither.
It's a gem,
Yeah, I loved it. I was like, when you're just like, and my mother would let us go, kind of run and go grab some. Like, she felt it was safe to go on your own. Go to the snack stand, know, and
Did your childhood drive-in, was it a single screen or did it have a multiple screen?
No, single, one screen. Yeah.
Mine was a double. So whenever my parents would let me go, even to the bathroom, you could just breeze behind the stand and you could see the other screen. And they also had this really cool shutter system where they'd throw up the shutters and it was almost open air in the concession stand. So while you were there, depending on which side you were at, you could essentially look out and watch. It was really nice, cool. And a design that I don't really see too often at drive-ins.
We just have one screen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, where we kind of started talking a little bit about the connection for the Muppets event. Gene, do you remember the moment that we kind of came up with this idea, or how this came to be?
I think I mentioned it to you one day because I thought this wasn't this year. We were going to try and do it last year.
That's right. Yeah.
And we had some scheduling problems with some guests that we wanted to bring and all of that. So we just thought, let's just hold off and do it properly the next year.
Right.
I think I just asked you if you wanted to do maybe a Muppets themed one. Yeah. So it was just a matter of trying. We waited till this year to try and do it properly, and it worked out better because we've got more things that we're going to do this year, and Billy and I are going to do a live episode of our podcast. So, gang, at some point I'm going to invite you to come up, and Billy will be in LA. I'll be at the drive-in, and you'll have a chance to come and ask questions and get on the podcast. We have to pick a real name for this one day. And we're going to have some some Muppet collectibles there. And we're going to have some video intros by some of the major puppeteers and some other things that might happen. We're still trying to work things out, so I'm not going to say anything yet. But it's going to be a really fun night.
I'm going to say it here. It's our #1 selling event now. Believe it or not, we've announced Zombie Fest. We've announced our opening weekend. The excitement around this Muppets event is through the roof. Wow. And like you said, timing wise, last year, certain things had to happen for us to make it work this year. We got creative with, putting video up on screen and live introductions, pre-recorded introductions. So everything's kind of set up perfectly for this to knock, and we're
congratulations. That's amazing. That's great.
I'm telling you, it's all you guys, because as much as we wanted to do a Muppets event, sometimes it takes that extra ingredient, or in some cases that person that has the connection to the love, to make it a fan event. And Mark and the Monkeys is a perfect example.
Right. Well, but they're coming to see your movies, and they're coming to a special place to do it. I mean, Gene and I could be in a cornfield. It wouldn't be the same thing. Like you're doing a thing for everybody. It's amazing.
At some point too, I'm going to walk around with the my phone /camera see if I can pick up people who are dressed in, really exciting clothing and show the projectors and give a little tour around, give you the whole Mahoning experience.
I just love that we're giving a space for young fans to come out as well, because that was the original idea is, can we present A-class puppeteers and A-class folks in the industry and present that in a way that could bring a youngster out that is into this, that is like you guys when you were young, and be able to come and wear that on their sleeve in such a way that, it's almost a showcase for them and an inspirational hub for them. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's that popular. See, I was going to bail on the event, so I guess now that it's really popular.
We got you locked now.
Gotta go now.
Well, talk a little bit about your guys' crossover work with professional work with the Muppets. Gene, you worked on Sesame Street for a little while, am I correct?
Well, I did some animated films for Sesame Street back in the late 90s. They were for season 28 and 29, but they still will run in the show, of course.
C is
the
letter C.
Oh, I love that.
C, the number 10, Empty and Full, None, Some, and All, and some other. But I did some animation for Sesame Street. I even worked on that show Between the Lions, which is some of the same people, and did behind the scenes artwork for like style guides for the puppets and things. And I did a couple books for them.
And is that totally separate? You guys didn't work on that together?
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He did the storyboards for Muppets from Space. That's the first thing we worked on as far as Muppets go.
Yeah, I did some character designs on 2 programs, though, that never got picked up. One was called Late Night Buffet, and one was Tinseltown.
Yeah. They're both Henson projects.
Yeah, some of the actual puppets have been used for some other projects, so I see them pop up. Actually, I saw recently one of the monkeys that I designed for Late Night Buffet, Coldplay is on tour, and they have a puppet.
Yeah, I saw them. They brought it on SNL, I think. Yeah.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
What's her name? Like Moon something? Angel Moon, I
remember. Yeah.
And she has a band, and one of the band members, the guitarist, is one of my monkeys. But but our friend Nicolette Santino is traveling the world performing Angel Moon, and she's doing such an amazing job.
Yeah. Oh, that's too cool. Well, at what point, Bill, did you have the opportunity to start voicing and go from character performance to voice, and then more behind the scenes with production and directing?
We have to make a correction.
Oh, that's right. I said it wrong, right? It's not, what did I say? Puppeteers, what, wrong?
Well, it's good to make the point, because a lot of people are under the impression that the voice is done separately than the puppeteering. But it's almost, other than dinosaurs, usually whoever's puppeteering is providing the voice.
So in this case, you weren't the voice of Earl, or you were?
I wasn't.
You weren't. But in most cases, that is the case.
Yes. Well, with the Muppets, it's the performer, or the character is performed by one person. They are the voice and the manipulator of the puppet, right? So, and then sometimes you have somebody who works with you to do one of the other arms or something like that, right?
Right.
You're working with somebody else, but
somebody fully encompasses that character.
Yeah. So Dave Goles is Gonzo, and he does the voice and the puppet manipulation. He's also Bunsen, Honeydew. It's all him, right? Except for hands. Like sometimes I'll do his right hand or something, so.
Sure.
But so thanks, Gene. Yeah, it's not so much voice. Like Frank Oz used to say, the voice is 10% and the rest is all character.
Right.
Because if you listen to Jim or Frank, there's only so many voices you can do, but it's about the character. So if you hear some of Jim's characters, if they're in this range, right, they're this kind of guy. But when the character changes, he could be this kind of guy and be a little different, or it just depends on the attitude, right? So like Rowlf the Dog is very up and fluffy and he's excited, he's but then Dr. Teeth is more gritty, but he's still in this range. Right? So it's about how you approach the character, but you could still use the quality of those voices, right?
Yeah.
That was something I learned from them, because I was like, how do you do all these characters, and I started to realize, well, it's not just actually, I used to say voices. How am I going to come up with all these voices? And it was Frank who just said, it's not just about the voice, it's really about the character, and that voice will come.
Yeah.
Even if I wanted to do this, and the puppet had buck teeth, it's a little different, but he's still got, maybe he's in that range.
Hey, he's still right in there.
But anyway, so I guess my first thing was, I think after Dinosaurs, there was something called Muppet, I think, Fairy Tale Theater, maybe.
Yes,
like
yes,
that.
yeah.
And we did all of the old fairy tales. Gonzo was Rumpelstiltskin, I think, and my first character was a Elvis elf. And they were all Elvises, and they all came out, thank you, and they were they made the shoes or something. I can't. Yeah. What fairy tale is that? I don't know. Like Gene said, my memory's terrible. Anyway, it was an Elvis elf, and I sang a song and got to work with the guys for the first time. First time working with Frank Oz doing Miss Piggy, and it was just amazing. And then I don't know, not too long after that, they did Muppet Treasure Island, and Brian asked me if I wanted to do one of the pirate characters, and he didn't have a lot to do at first. And then I started improvising and playing around, and I started to get more lines, and we figured out the dynamic between these three. It was Polly Lobster, who was Kevin Clash, Mad Monty, the great Jerry Nelson, and I was Clueless Morgan, the goat. And the three of us figured out a vocal dynamic as well as how they related to each other, and so I just started riffing and playing around and had fun. And so from that, I think, am I right about this, Gene? I'm not sure. I can't remember if I did a show called The Animal Show first, before Treasure Island, or if Treasure Island came after.
Well, you can consult the family archivist. I'll just look.
If you don't mind checking the library. But either way, the Animal Show was my real training ground, because the Animal Show was about these two characters, Stinky and Jake. One was a skunk and one was a polar bear. And there was a talk show about the wildlife. And characters would come on from the wild, all puppets, right? And we'd show footage from National Geographic or some wildlife company that had footage in the UK, because we shot it there. And we would comment on the footage. And there was, the writers were the great Muppet writers, came up with really funny things that we would describe, like a turtle would be on top of another turtle's back, and it would be like, oh, look, he's taking a cab to work, So it was just weird stuff like that. But the training was because we had to move really fast. We had to shoot 2.5 shows a day, and it was 3 cameras. So you had to figure out, on a line cut, to make sure you're looking in the right place. Because with puppets, the eye focus is very important. If it's just off, you don't believe it, Yeah. So it would cut to the camera, and you'd have to just kind of quickly, or do a slow adjust, or, know that it's coming, and you kind of get ready, do a little, like you might just do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was my training ground, in which I think I did 30 some characters or something.
The Animal Show was 94 to 97. Treasure Island was 96, so you did that in the middle.
Yeah, so Animal Show came first, was my training ground for characters, and that was where I was like, I was still worried about voices, and so I'd go, well, geez, what voice am I gonna do? So if I was doing like, a Marlon Brando kind of thing, then another character, I would just do it a little higher, but it would be like this. And then another character might be down like this. So right. Having to do all these characters, I was like, oh God, what am I gonna do? But yeah, so from there, I think I did the Swedish Chef, but he didn't speak in Treasure Island, and I did Rowlf the Dog in Treasure Island, but he just laughed.
Right.
They start you with the laughs, and then they promote you to dialogue.
Yeah.
They work you in,
I guess.
Do you
And
go
from like right hand to main character? Like, do they use the up and coming puppeteers to be kind of the right hand, literally in this case?
Well, I don't think there's a
chain,
kind
right?
of, yeah, there isn't really a process like that for everybody. Everybody's different, I think, how they come into it. And like my favorite thing in Treasure Island that I did, even though I had my first kind of big character in a movie, it was my first movie ever, was I was the hands for Jerry Nelson for a character called Blind Pew. He's if you guys remember him, he comes in, he's looking for Billy Bones, and he comes into the tavern.
Yeah.
The fact that I just got to work with Jerry Nelson, was unbelievable. And I was like, Jerry, what if I do this? And can I grab that? How do you feel? He was like, do whatever you want, man.
Listen, kid.
I remember that so well.
Too cool. I mean, I love seeing, the rise, where it's you started as that kid in, the basement or wherever, making up fun and seemingly have climbed the Muppet ladder. I don't want to toot your horn too much, but I told Mark and Jeff,
go ahead. It's all right.
We have the Muppet
what are you
King
saying?
coming. The King of the Muppets is coming.
Let me mention for him, just so that people listening are aware of the major characters that Billy does. He took over some of Jim Henson's characters. He does the Swedish Chef. He does Rowlf the Dog. He does Dr. Teeth, Mana. Who am I missing?
I think that's it.
You could. Oh my god!
And for his own, he created his own characters like Pepe the King Prawn, and Bobo the Bear. And
Big Mean Carl.
Big Mean Carl, right?
Johnny Fiamma.
Oh, this sounds really self.
He gets excited over this.
Billy has named 4 characters after me. So
that's love right there.
Big orange behemoth is Gene the Behemoth.
Clean Gene, I call him.
And then there were 2. There was one in the Animal Show. There was one in
Eugene the Wild Dog.
Yeah. And there was one in the Letters to Santa. Is that the one?
Yeah, the trombone player or something.
Yeah. And then there's one in this new project, which you should mention now.
Yeah.
What's the biggie? I mean, everybody is asking. They're like, why can't Bill come out? What's the deal? Get Bill to come out. I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but there's a pretty major project going on right now that my man's working on. So why don't you let them know what's happening in Muppet World?
Well, the latest thing that's coming out is a show called Muppets Mayhem. And it's a show that I teamed up with Adam Goldberg of the Goldbergs and his college buddy, Jeff Yorks, who also is an amazing, he created trailers for movies and TV shows, but he basically created the teaser, the trailer that got the Goldbergs sold. Really smart guy, really funny guy, and huge Muppet fan. Like normally, if there's big Muppet fans out there, they're fans, but like but they're not. They don't get the sensitivity to the characters and the jokes. He just kind of has this understanding of it, just coming in, Yeah. And Adam is just so brilliant. He's just like, I call him the writing savant. He's just unbelievable.
He's a local hero. He's right from around here.
Yeah. And so back in like 2016 or 17, we did a show with the band, a live concert in San Francisco called Outside Lands. And we did about a 25-minute set at the Golden Gate Park. And it was crazy. I've never seen anything like it. They said, and by the time we were done, people had come from the other stages. There was 30,000 people watching this show on stage. And I was like, don't they know the music's pre-recorded? We're not really playing. Because we had microphones that we could talk in between the songs, so it felt like it was real.
Sure.
Yeah, a guy named Ed Mitchell, who does amazing music for the Muppets, he made sure that it all sounded like it was all coming from the same place, And so I thought, man, boy, people are loving this. We should do something. So I had this idea of doing a show about the band going on tour. And I pitched it to the Muppet Studios, and it was something we were talking about it. We wanted to do it. And then there was a change in the people who run the Muppet Studios, and things shifted a bit. And I pitched it to them, and it was like, yeah, this sounds good. Let's do this. Think about doing this. Let's talk some more. And ABC, who has a deal with Adam Goldberg for the Goldbergs, they said, Adam has this amazing pitch for a show about the Electric Mayhem Band. And so Adam and Jeff went to the Muppet Studios and pitched their show. And the Muppet Studios was like, wait a minute, you guys should be together, you know? So thankfully they put us together, and we ended up creating this show that is not about them going on tour, but it's about them creating their first album ever. Yes. Because, you know, they've recorded music, but they've never done an album.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a great ride. The date that it's supposed to come out is May 10th. But the show is basically about them making their first album. They meet up with this hungry executive. They're the only Muppets in the series. I'll give a little tease. There's a few new Muppets that nobody's ever seen before. But mostly it's about them in the real world. And it's about her trying to figure out how to get them to record and manage them and all their craziness. Yeah. And the fun of it was that we wrote everything ahead of time before we shot it, which is not always the case. You can start writing things and then you're writing while you're shooting, you know, a typical sitcom kind of thing.
Yeah.
But this isn't sitcom style. This is more like film style. So what we did is we wrote ahead 10 episodes, and it's like one big long movie. And so there's not only the whole arc of the season, but then there's arcs of each character for the entire season, because they all have runners that run the length of the thing. And then there's things within each episode, right? So it's got all these great layers and new character backstory that nobody's ever heard about the band.
That's what I'm so excited about, is like, that was always my favorite. Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. And they were just underrepresented in that way, that they never were the lead, you know? So when this news broke that you guys were getting together to do this, it was like, finally, you know, we get to know all about these characters and what drives them, you know?
You know, there's certain characters that are good in small increments, right? Statler and Waldorf, you don't want to spend an hour with Statler and Waldorf. You don't even want to spend 10 minutes with Statler and Waldorf. You know, they're not as funny, right? They're a moment. They're a button. They're a joke, and you're out, and you want more of them again later, right? It's those kind of characters that less is more, right? And I always think of the band as a less is more thing.
Yeah, so, they're an anecdote that you can use, toss in with spice.
That you get their archetype, and so you have certain expectations about them, and when that pays off, you're satisfied, and you can move on, right?
Right.
So I just want to make sure that we didn't get to a place where they were becoming these characters that just talk all the time, and they just now are becoming more like everybody else, you know. Like, I wanted to make sure that they still had that feeling that they weren't being overused. Right. And so the humans in our story help us find that balance, right? They do. They're in it. They're obviously doing more. They obviously have more to do than they ever have before. They certainly have more stories than they've ever had before. But the fun was the balance of, how do we keep it interesting without them just becoming an everyday character, right? Keep the uniqueness of each of them without spoiling it, you know, without overdoing it, I guess. And so that was the challenge, and that was the fun of it.
You have such a love and appreciation for the world, you know, and it really makes sense that you are in the position that you're in, because it does take somebody with that type of protective sensibility about it, where you don't want to exploit these characters. You don't want to take any wrong turns with these characters that mean the world to people.
Yeah, and you know, the Muppet Studios, the new folks that came in are great. You know, they get it. They understand the integrity of these characters and protecting them, and making sure they're not just being taken over by anyone who has an idea.
Yeah.
And Adam and Jeff are so collaborative and respectful, and they just love the Muppets and what Jim created, so I felt really lucky to have these partners to create with, because they got it. And I just hope people like it. We got a lot of great guest stars, great storylines. There's some great storylines that people I think are going to get. And it's got those layers of, there's stuff for the adults and there's stuff for the kids and there's stuff in between. And kids may not get some of that stuff, and they'll get it as they grow up, and
that's the Muppet sensibility. That's what I've always loved about it. It has a play on so many different levels. I mean, my 5-year-old son can sit and adore it for a different reason than I adore it. And it grows along with somebody. Yeah. But there is something clear about just like the drive-in culture, how it burrows into your heart when you're young. The Muppets have that about it, where it's just, it never escapes your soul. It never is not a part of you once that bug bites you. And it's funny because once we announced the event, the people I never thought would be the Muppet people are like, thank you so much for doing this,
Right.
So it's going to be really great to just let people rock it.
And it's been a while since the performers have really had a voice. And I think because being a co-creator of the show, I have more power, right. In the room. And Adam certainly wants the input. I want the input. Jeff wants the input. Muppet Studios wants it was different. Like, people, there's been a thing over the years where we weren't always allowed in the process that in the beginning, like especially for series or a film. It's hard because the people that create these other shows and these ideas come in and they have something they're trying to protect as well, right?
Yeah.
But when it's opened up to the performers and people who have been involved with the Muppets over the years, there's something unique about it, and I think people feel it because it's true. It's honest to the characters, and ABC and Disney Plus allowed us to do that. They trusted in Adam. Adam's a big deal, right? He's
a
big shot, and so they trusted in him. If it wasn't for him, I'm not sure if we would have made it, but he really, they listen to him and they trust him, and fortunately he believes in the performers and where that stuff comes from,
that magic.
And so I was able to be a part of that and making sure that everybody's voices are heard and we're following the Muppet tone and fun and weirdness and
totally
stuff.
We're so excited. I mean, the fact that the event gets to celebrate that in a way, it will be peak time for that series to be out. Mark, why don't we let the folks know, when is the Muppets event? And also, Gene and Bill, if you guys can give a little breakdown on what the Barretta Brothers podcast/vodcast is, just so people can give you a listen and check out what you guys are doing. I'm ever impressed by this podcast. Gene will send me clips and links, and I'm like, is that freaking Ricky Gervais? Like, it's amazing how good you guys are at connecting that fandom. It's exactly what we're trying to do here, and you guys do it in such a hyper-focused way. It's great.
Well, COVID happened, and both of our work slowed down a little bit, and it was just perfect timing, and we found a project that allowed us to work together again.
Yeah.
So we created this, I always say podcast, because you should really watch it, because there's a lot of visual going on, but you can also
listen. In this
case,
yes, absolutely.
And so Billy's, aside from just having the world of puppeteers and everybody that has done something important and valuable for the Muppets has become a guest at some point. And then Billy's got a great deal of celebrity guests that he stayed friends with beyond their productions that we've had on the show, like Ricky Gervais and Danny Trejo and John Voight and Robert Rodriguez and Alton Brown and
Kings
David
of the
Arquette.
industry. Kings.
Bobby Moynihan was fun.
Bobby Moynihan,
Oh,
yeah.
Come on.
And then we also have done fun things just to get the fans involved. Like we've had an episode called America's Got Muppet Talent, and then we had these people compete to do Muppet songs, and then the fans would vote. And we've done fan art episodes, and just we've been on kind of a hiatus lately where we've only done a show when we've had the time and when something important has come up in the last year and a half or 2 years now, I think.
Yeah.
But we did like 50, 60, almost 60 shows in that year. And so there's a lot to choose from.
If you love dinosaurs and you haven't checked it out yet, Virgil,
yeah,
we did a whole anniversary, 30th anniversary, and it's got most of the writers from the show, the executive producers, Brian Henson, the people from the workshop, the performers, Stuart Pankin, like just a great show.
It's a 3-hour episode.
Yeah, you learn a lot about what it was like to make that show. It's really fun.
What a dream.
We had like 40 people on it once or something.
That's why I love, the medium of podcasts is, it is something that you can do from the comfort of your own home, but it also can be so wide reaching, anybody can put it in their ears, and bringing the guests on, man, it's awesome what you guys are doing.
Yeah, you go to the BARRETTABrothers.com, and Barretta is with 2 R's and 2 T's. We do
2 A's and 1 E and a B.
Not necessarily in that order.
We did fun things like we surprised Ricky with Constantine showing up as a surprise.
I saw that one. Oh my gosh.
We just freaked out.
Hearing that man laugh, I mean, like you probably feel it. I mean, you could retire off of knowing you made Ricky Gervais laugh.
Well, he's not hard to make laugh. We went through a whole movie with him, and he just is so joyful.
Ball.
He cracked up all the time.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Mark, and when is the Muppets event, so we can make sure everybody knows when this is happening?
That is Saturday, May 20th, 2023 at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater in Lehighton, Pennsylvania. Tickets available now.
Nice. Well done. See,
his voice went up. See, he was excited about
He's
Lehighton.
a pro. He's auditioning.
It's a little Jerry Lewis thing I throw in there.
The Lehighton.
There's plenty of activities there too.
Activities.
Can I also just plug my website real quick?
Yeah, please.
So just please go to my website, which is genebarretta.com. If you want to see some really cool books. They're mainly picture books for elementary age kids. And there's a lot there. I've been doing it for over 20 years now. So there's some award winners.
There certainly are a lot of award winners.
You ain't messing around, my friend.
I should mention the latest release, which just came out in October, called Starring Steven Spielberg, The Making of a Young Filmmaker. We honestly were not riding the coattails of the Fabelmans. We actually signed the book in 2019, like 2 years before he started even talking about shooting the Fabelmans. But it was perfect timing because it came out like
timing. Right.
The Fabelmans did. So,
well,
it's
tell them about
subject.
You were just out at a screening and were able to do a meet and greet signing type of thing, actually.
We did a Bryn Mawr Film Institute show, a matinee of it, and we did a program right after, which was fun.
It's too cool.
We're going to do some others. We're going to do a Muppet one in the late summer also.
Well, we're so excited to have you guys involved with the theater. We're so excited to have you guys on the podcast. I mean, again, what you guys do is really inspirational, and that's really what it's about, to know that the next generation is going to come in and have this mind-blowing experience with the Muppets at the Mahoning. You never know. It could lead to them being the next Earl Sinclair.
There you go. You could do a Dinosaurs Week.
Oh, don't tease me. Would we ever be able to get rights to play it up on the screen?
I don't know.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be something?
I have to ask somebody.
We do a nostalgia 90s event, and even if we drop a clip in there, people will lose their mind.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. For you that.
They're on Disney Plus, I think, or they move them. No, I can't remember where they are. They put them out.
Well, is there anything, Bill, that you want to promote beyond the new show coming?
No.
All right. I love it. I love it.
I'd like to promote my nephew, Ben, who has got his permit, driver's permit.
Well done, Ben.
His father is petrified.
Oh, boy.
I did scare you.
He is an incredible runner. He's going to be a star. I just
country.
know it.
I want to promote my nephew Jackson, who actually has a small part in Muppets Mayhem in an episode.
Ooh, it's a family affair.
He does, and actually, Adam is the one who put him in it. I was like, "No, you don't have to do." He's like, "No. This is who this should be." So Adam
so great.
picked him. I didn't have it wasn't my choice, but I'm so glad he did it.
Because Billy doesn't find him talented.
He's not talented at all. But he's actually going to New York. He's going to go to the new school in New York this fall. So I'm going to move to New York then, I guess, because I just can't bear
it. No more LA. No.
Yeah. They want you back so bad.
So, but other than I just promote them.
That's great. That's beautiful. Well, I want to end the podcast by asking you guys a little bit.
What tree am I?
Of what you are?
What kind of a tree?
What kind of tree?
Did Barbara Walters? Who used to ask that question?
That was Barbara Walters. What kind of tree would
if you were a tree? What would you be?
That's a good one. Yeah. I certainly wouldn't be here without the inspirations that kicked in at the right time. You guys were lucky enough to have each other to bounce that inspiration off of. For all those youngsters that are dreaming out there, looking for that piece of passion or piece of information that might set them on the right track, what can you say to somebody who might be looking to get into the industry? That being either movies, Muppets, or author.
Never give up. If it's something you're really passionate about, no matter what it is, I guess, but if we're talking about entertainment, there is so many times you don't do what you hoped you were going to do. There's so much competition. There's so many people who are interested. And now, especially with social media, everybody is a star in 10 minutes. So, it's difficult. It's difficult. Even though there's more channels and there's more streaming content and all those things, it's still very difficult. But I think you just have to have have passion and not give up. You can't give up after your first, second, third, fourth, 10th, whatever that is. If that's all you can do, then I think you just do that. You follow your heart and never give up.
I agree.
Tenacity.
Yeah.
Right, Ben? Tenacious.
Yeah.
I can add something to that.
Oh, no.
An experience that I learned in the book industry, and I'm sure that it applies to all of the arts, is that you have to accept the idea of collaboration and diplomacy and learn how to take criticism and turn it into something positive, and also argue for what you think is right, especially when you have the respect of somebody you're working with. And don't go into this business thinking that you're the most precious thing that the industry has been waiting for, and because nobody likes to work with an asshole, and so that's a big part of it. If you're a pleasure to work with, that goes a long way. And so those are big lessons to take into the arts.
You just made me think of something. Can I just say one last thing about that?
Please.
Just because you think you're supposed to go down this road doesn't mean that there aren't other side streets along the way, right? So there's an opening, go see what's happening. Doesn't mean you're giving up that path. You're not giving up the main road. You're just stopping off and having a drink and a little burger, and you're stopping off, right? And who knows what you're going to do on those streets that could take you on another back street before you even come back to the main street, right?
Oh, yeah.
So don't be closed off. Be open to whatever's out there. Any opportunities that come up, be open to it. Like we were joking. Okay, yeah, do it. What's the worst thing that could happen? You
That's
know,
right. Falls on its face. Maybe
I
you
know-
learn something from it. You know?
I know a lot of self-destructive artists and they're their worst enemy because they set a really narrow path on what they will allow themselves to do. And they expect to be jumping into A-level work, like right out of school or whatever it is. And they think, well, if I do that, you know, I don't have a passion for it, and it blemishes my talent, or it's not what I was meant to do. You never know really where your value is until you've been doing it a long time, and those side paths lead you in really, like my career now. That's a perfect example.
Yep.
I never knew I'd be doing this until I was 39 or 40 years old.
Yeah. You don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not a very religious person, but my favorite saying is, you want to make God laugh? Tell him you got a plan.
Right.
It's impossible. There's
Yeah.
no way. You don't know what's going to happen. You know,
That's
so just as long as you're not hurting anybody, you know, as long as you're not hurting people and you're passionate about something, you follow that path and stay open.
Go on IMDb and look at your favorite actors. Look at the first 10 jobs they had. They're all crap, you know, but it gave them exposure and allowed them to network through the business. Yeah.
It's so inspirational. I mean, this is exactly what I wanted of this this conversation. It's beautiful.
Well, I need to tell you now, we're going to be charging you for this interview.
No, those tips ain't for free now. I want to give Mark and Jeff an opportunity to ask any questions if they have anything burning.
Yeah.
I had two, one for each to be equal.
Yes.
Gene, did you mention once that you had worked at MTV?
I was an intern there while I was at NYU.
And what period of time was that?
This was right at the beginning. This was in '83. So this was
Back when MTV was just M.
I was going to say back when the M stood for music.
Yeah, it was just purely music videos and occasional, you know, big event concert or something. It was trying to remember what was big then. Like I met Cyndi Lauper and Spandau Ballet singer and stuff like that. I think I might be remembering wrong, but I think the Beat It video. No, that was later. It was the what was his first? Yeah, what was the first big video?
The one with the girl,
Billie Jean.
No.
Billie Jean.
Billie Jean.
Yeah. I think that was happening then. The group Asia.
Yeah,
You had we were in some private conversation, and you had just casually dropped that you worked at MTV in the '80s, and I was just like, "Hey, I'm a staff."
Well, that's got to be a story.
That was just real. I was at NYU, and in the lounge, the student lounge, there was just a flyer up that said looking for interns, and I called and I went and interviewed that day, and that was, it was that simple to get. It was the music programming department, so it wasn't. I didn't get to be on the set every day watching the VJs and stuff, but it was still a fun time.
It was a big deal, MTV.
Here's a super lame techie question. Could you tell me what video format were the actual music videos? Were they 3/4 inch tape? Were they beta?
No, I don't think they were beta. I think they were probably 3/4 inch.
Yeah, I think they were 3/4. That was the bigger, higher standard, right?
Broadcast standard at the time.
Yeah. I remember having to put
old people recording tape.
The boss would say, listen to this song and pull out the hook for me because we're going to need it. So I think I remember 3/4 inch maybe. Yeah.
And my question for Bill is, were you involved with any of the Muppet appearances on the Jerry Lewis telethon?
I was.
Now, how was that?
Our two worlds collide.
I'm a huge Jerry Lewis fan, and I would watch or tape the telethon in full. And this sounds horrible. I would fast forward through all the the really sad stuff about the kids, and I would watch the entertainment. And I remember the Muppets appearing, but oftentimes I think it might have been in the hours that he was like taking a nap or something. So did you ever have any interaction with the man himself?
Yeah, we did it twice. The first year was Johnny, Fiamma, and Sal. And we did the midnight to 4 a.m., but we did Jerry the next morning when he came in. We did a bit with him. And then the other one was
Pepe and
Rizzo, maybe. I can't remember what it was. But when we first met, Brian and I went,
Speaking of that, you guys performed Bohemian Rhapsody before you guys did the big video of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Johnny and Sal did their own version of Bohemian Rhapsody.
And were you not hosts for a period? I seem to remember seeing like Johnny and Pepe at the desk.
That's what I'm saying. So it was the first year, it was with Jeffrey Tambor. Is that the first year? Yeah. First year was Jeffrey Tambor and us, and we were co-hosting throughout the night. And then the second time was Tom Bergeron, I think, and us. I think that's right.
You did it 4 years, actually, not 2.
We did it 4 times?
Yeah. 2003, 4, 5, and 7.
What do I know?
It's all a blur.
Oh my God.
And was that more of a challenge? I mean, because typically with Muppeteering, you're performing, I believe, written material, but with the telethon, was that all written or was that just improv for hours at a time?
Well, the first year we got a book that was about this thick for the night, right? Hours, so and so, and it was all scripted. And we just were terrible at it. So we just started making shit up anyway. The next year we came back, they didn't give us anything.
You did so great the last time. Have at it.
They said, you guys do whatever you think you want to do. Here are the things that are going to happen. Here's what you just need to mention this and this and this. We'll put it up on the teleprompter, and whenever you guys get to it, and you have 2 minutes, right? And then we would just make stuff up. We tried to think of things to do. Like that's why we did Bohemian Rhapsody. It was just ridiculous. And we also tried to think of a storyline for the night, that Johnny gets really nervous. He ends up there's a shot. I think at one point, Jeffrey Tambor is on the stage. He's like, all right, we're going to go to Johnny. Where's Johnny? Johnny? Anybody know where Johnny is? And they cut to Sal outside of the men's room door. And he's going, Johnny, come on, you're on, Johnny. And you can hear Johnny going, I can't go on. I can't do it. I can't do it. He's really nervous. They open the door and he's like sick at the sink. He's like going to puke. But so we just started making up bits. We did like a tap dancing thing. Johnny would, if Johnny could tap longer than, I don't know, something like that, people had 30 seconds to send in money. And he was going to tap dance the whole time. So we did that. And but if you're a big Jerry Lewis fan,
you're gonna tell me a story.
Yeah, first time we met him, Brian and I went to meet him, and it was where was it? We did it. It was in Las Vegas. Is that right? Somewhere. It was a big ballroom, and they had cubicles all kind of squared off, and his was at the back of the room. And we walked along, and people were taking us there to see him. And we come up, and there he is, and he's sitting at his desk, and he's got this yellow kind of shirt on, and he stands up, and he goes, "Fellas, please come over." And he's doing he's got like a sucker in his
He's
mouth.
got the lozenge.
Yeah, he got a lozenge going. And he comes around the desk, and he's got red socks on, knee-high socks and shorts. And come over, sit down, please, sit down. So we come over and we sit down. And within about, I'd say, a 3 to 5 minute period, he did every impersonation you've ever seen of Jerry Lewis, basically. But it was him, right? So he would do things like, so he's sitting there and he's going, boys, it's wonderful that you decided to come and do this. I can't tell you how wonderful it is, because what you're going to do is you're going to need one of these. And he grabbed a stapler and goes, here's one for you and one for you. And here, take this. And he's just doing Jerry, being crazy. But he got really emotional at one point, and he said, you two, because he's the one he chose Johnny and Sal to be on. He said, because you two remind me of Dean and I. Oh. And he said, I have, I can't remember the woman's name, but his secretary was like over there at another cubicle. And he was like, Dolores, see if you can get the so-and-so routine for the fella. Yeah. And so there was a routine that he and Dean had never done on television. They had only done it live, and he wanted to give it to us to do, but they never found it, I guess, and we never got it. But and then he said to me, "Are you Italian?" And I said, "Yeah." "Would you like a red ice pop?" And I said, "Okay, sure." Like a red ice pop. What does that have to do with me being Italian?
Yeah.
So he gets up and he goes, he has a little freezer that he's got behind him, and he goes to his freezer and he brings us each red ice pops, and the three of us are having ice pops at Jerry Lewis's desk.
What a world.
Oh man, it was unbelievable. And then we ended up doing a little bit with him, but he loved Sal. He loved Sal because it reminded him of himself, you know.
Yeah.
But I think you can see, I think there's clips somewhere on Google if you find them.
I thought he did something else with the stapler.
No, he stapled his penis. That's what he was doing.
What?
He was doing this.
Pure Jerry.
He takes it off his desk. He was like, "Out, and there's one for you. Out, one for you." That's what he was doing.
Oh my gosh.
I'm glad
Telling that to the grandkids.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah. It was I'll never forget it, you know.
Man. How about you, Jeff? Anything for the boys?
No, I thought it was a great interview. I learned a lot from you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure.
Absolute truth.
I've learned a lot about the drive-in from you, Jeff. Not only through the movie, but just hanging with you, you know, when I come by.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Jeff, how did you get into the drive-in movie business? Where did that come from? How did you get into that?
Well, it started out when I was in the Air Force, and I learned how to run professional 35 millimeter projectors.
Wow.
I ran my Air Force Base theater. And then after I got out of the Air Force, I just graduated into indoor theaters and then drive-ins. And I was back and forth between drive-ins and indoor theaters for many years. I did both.
Wow. What year were you doing in the service?
76 to 80.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's amazing. Well, boy.
Well, when did you start at Mahoning?
2001.
Oh, I was thinking it was earlier. You were at other drive-ins earlier, though, right?
Yes, other drive-ins and other indoor theaters. Yep, correct.
Are you from that area originally?
Yeah, the Allentown area, basically. Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he works at a radio station too during the day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I also work. Yeah, I started out as a DJ. Nobody wants to see a 64-year-old DJ, so now I'm in management. But I started out as a DJ. Yeah.
Wow.
And I still have one show on the weekend. I have one show on the weekend.
Yeah.
Did you know Jerry Blavat?
No, I never did. I was hoping I'd get to meet him before he passed away, but I never got the chance. I wish I would have.
Yeah, he was cool. I love him.
He was really cool. Yep. And he kept working. He kept working right up to the end. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, he was always working. Yeah.
I would run into him on the street in Philly, and he was always on. It was like, "Hey, man," you know, and gun fingers and stuff. Yeah.
Yep, the geeter with the heater.
Yeah, the boss with the hot sauce.
Yep, exactly.
You know what? I just thought of something that I forgot that I just wanted to mention about a kid. Can I just say one last thing?
Please, yeah.
I think one of the things that influenced me, aside from Gene, which was most of it, right? That's the
most important, but go ahead.
Right. When my uncle, our Uncle Harry, our mother's youngest brother, went to Vietnam, how old was I? I don't even know what, Gene, 4, 5?
Something like that.
Maybe 6 or something. I didn't know where he went, right? And I was asking, and on TV was the Tom Jones show. And my uncle looked like Tom Jones. They had same kind of hair, sideburns. And I thought that was him. and my grandmother said it was like, she was like, yeah, he's off. He's doing the show. They didn't tell me he was in Vietnam or at war, you know? And so I remember that as like, oh, you can do that? You know, like my uncle's on TV. I could, you know, like I was drawn to it. And then our uncle on our father's side, my father's brother, kind of looked like Dick Van Dyke. And but very funny, like a very funny, crazy, fun person. And when he would come to visit, they lived out here in California. And when they would come to visit, I remember as a very young, him walking along, coming toward down our walkway. And he did like he was like having a heart attack, but it was like theatrical, you know? And he fell down on the grass, and it was like a show. And I just thought he was Dick Van Dyke for the longest time. So I guess I always felt like you could do it. You could be on TV, you know, if your family's in it. Then
that connection.
Family's in it.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, you
We're
think
born into the business.
But even our cousin Peggy, she was an actress, and there was a show years ago called Don Adams Screen Test. Don Adams
remembers
would do
it.
these.
Wow.
Oh yeah, they would have a celebrity, and then an actor would come on, and they would do a scene from a famous movie. And our cousin Peggy played the Bride of Frankenstein with like Robert Goulet or somebody like that. I can't remember now who it was.
Yeah.
But again, it was like, oh, I can do that. You know, she's older than me. I was like, oh, you can, yeah, they can do it. You know?
That's so informative, that moment of realization where you're just like, oh, this, you know, this is possible.
This isn't that far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was most important.
But Gene is really,
But after Gene, of course.
Okay, Gene.
Well, thank you guys so much for giving us so much time and giving us so much love. It means the world. And we really can't wait for the Muppets show, as well as Muppets Take Mahoning. A long time coming, my friends.
I can't wait. To hear that it's the most popular so far this summer. That's really exciting.
It's fantastic.
We'll see you then.
Keep the dream alive, fellas. And on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.